every Sunday like most of you, or maybe all of you, and I enjoyed it. Mom made us go when we were hungover. She was a good mom. But I started asking questions, particularly when I was a senior in high school. Is God really real? Because I wasn't sure, and I had a problem with that. Went through basic training in 1988 at Fort Sill. Hey, any Fort Sill boys here today? Hey, we got one. That place was hell. Wasn't it? It was worse than 1980. But it was in basic training when I was really starting to search for God because, you're broken down on purpose because they want to build you up. And God started speaking to me. And I think he's been speaking to us our whole lives, but I started hearing him for some reason because I needed to know. Like some of you are sitting in the seats right now, you know what I'm talking about. I needed to know if God was real. So I went on this whole journey. And as a Catholic boy, I decided, and it was my own idea, actually it was the Holy Spirit, but I thought I need to give my whole life to Christ. So I did. I did that January 1990. 3 weeks later, I was having a keg party for one of my buddies, and I fell into a bunch of sin. And I thought, how in the world does a guy give his life to Christ and he falls into this sin? And I swore I wasn't going to drink that night. Well, the next morning, as I was in my hungover state, this thought came into my mind as I was considering, why am I in this sin? And the thought was, you don't have the power of the Holy Spirit. You don't have the power to live a Christian life. It was true. So I began praying the rosary to get the power. I didn't even know what I was doing, but God was using my heart. And a few weeks later, 3 people prayed over me. And as a Catholic boy from small town, we were pretty conservative. I never saw that before. Well, that's not true. On the search retreats I did, so I was open to it. But what came next blew my mind. I knew with 100% certainty that God was real. I had what you might call a Pentecostal experience. And Catholics can have Pentecostal experience. Did you know that? Did you know that? Yeah, that's what happened. And it was crazy. And I'm not going to talk about that today, but I think you all need to know that God has you here for a reason. He has been trying to reach you, and he's reached many of you. But he's trying to reach you to tell you not only how much he loves you, but he wants to get you on your mission. That's where we're having the men's conference, right? To get you on your mission. Now, there's a couple guys that had a mission from God. Do you remember who those are? Remember the 2 guys who were on a mission from God? Yeah, right there. We're on a mission from God. But the reality is, God the Father has a particular mission for your life. And you might not be on it yet. I sure wasn't when I was in high school, and even out of college, I wasn't on that mission. But today, we want to help you get on that mission. So that is our goal of this men's conference, to get you on that mission. And the most important thing that you need to do to get on that mission is pray. You can't expect a marathon runner to sign up for 26.2 miles and not train. Can you imagine, Scott? I'm going to run a marathon. You got your miles in? No, I'm just going to sign up and do it. How would that work? You got to pray. There's no way around it. And I have found men over the last 30 years finding and loving a prayer life, and they never thought that would even happen to them. Never thought that was imaginable. So that's what we're about, getting you on your mission, and it always starts with prayer. God is trying to get your attention. It wasn't your idea that you're here. It was the Holy Spirit's idea that got you here. You're going to hear a couple keynotes, and you're going to have conversations with people. And I'm talking to you right now. And God is going to give you nuggets. What do I mean by nuggets? He's going to speak directly to your heart. So I don't know about you. When I go to these talks, I don't write everything down. There's some people that I don't do that. I would advise you to look for your pitch. Now, the great Boston Red Sox, 2004, right? What happened in 2004? ALCS, the Red Sox came back and they beat the demonic Yankees. That's about right, isn't it? They beat them. And in fine fashion, they needed one pitch. They needed one pitch. Again, what was the first baseman's name for the Red Sox that got on? Yeah! He got on. He needed that one pitch. See, they were looking for that one pitch. Manny Ramirez helped David Ortiz when he was traded from the Twins to the Red Sox. He helped him with the swing, and he said, every game, you're looking for one pitch. You're going to get one. And that's your home run. Every game, that one pitch. When you hear these talks, you're looking for that one pitch. That one nugget that God wants to say to you. And how do you know what that nugget's going to be? It'll resound in you. You'll go, that's really interesting. Write it down. And maybe by the end of the day, you'll have 4 nuggets or 6 nuggets or 1. I don't know. I'm not you. I'm not sure how God is going to use you. So write it down. All right. You know where the bathrooms are. It's to the left of the bar. There are some bathrooms downstairs, right, team? I think so. There's a women's bathroom, but we don't want them to use that. But to the left of the bar is the men's bathroom. I think there is one downstairs. Lunch is provided on us. And we do have a bartender coming today. At 5 o'clock, we have our beer in Blarney. And then we do have an arm wrestling competition. It is true. There's an arm wrestling competition, and there is a prize for the champ. Jared asked me, what class? Are there classes? Yeah, there's one class, heavyweight. What else do you want? Huh? What else do you want? There's a heavyweight. That's the class. But what we need to do next, let's see, did I get everything here? I think so. Pretty good. But we need to get you guys warmed up. So I'm going to play a little game with you. It's called Would You Rather? Okay? So it goes like this. You have 2 options. I'm going to say, would you rather this or would you rather that? Okay, so then we're going to kind of weigh who wins, and there is an answer. This is an actual game that you can go online and play, and it was really fun. So we'll try one here. Would you rather, is this on? I don't know if it's on. I think I have to turn it on. Hey! Okay, so would you rather listen to country music or would you rather listen to good music? All right, who's country? Who's country? Come on, yell. I don't want hands. No hands, yell. Hey, how about good music? I think we got to win. Hang on, let's see. 1,000 people were asked. Oh, good music. So here's another one. Would you rather watch a Tom Cruise movie or a John Wayne? Who's for Tom Cruise? That was huge, guys. Come on, who's for Tom Cruise? All right, how about John Wayne? Oh, let's see here. Hey, it's John Wayne. All right, here's another one. Would you rather have your arm sliced off little by little? I'm setting you up here. Ready? Or console a disheartened Dallas Cowboys fan? Okay, who wants arm sliced off? Arm sliced off. Hey, anybody? Yeah. Console a Dallas Cowboys fan? Ah, let's see what the answer is. Get your arm sliced off. That's right, fellas. That's right. Got another one. Would you rather eat beef? This is a dangerous one. South Dakota. Or eat pork? Who's for beef? Who's for pork? I think it's pretty close. The answer? Pork. Do you know why that is? I think it's just because it's cheaper. Here's another one. Would you rather get your hand blown up by a grenade launcher or watch another Super Bowl halftime show? Grenade launcher? Yeah. Super Bowl. Oh my gosh. Is this even close, fellas? That's right. Get your hand blown off. That's right. I think I got one more here. Would you rather watch the president mumble of his own words or watch with pleasure Barbra Streisand fall down a flight of stairs? Who's with the president over here? Come on, anybody? How about Barbra Streisand? Hey, let's see. Barbra Streisand. I think that's the last one, isn't it? Okay, is there one more? No, that's it. Okay, now, you guys got them all right. Okay, another thing. I forgot to tell you one thing. The other thing that we want to get out of today, for you to get out today, is to be an evangelizer. We are all called to evangelize. Amen? So there's a way to do it. And I've got a video that shows you exactly how this works. Watch this video now.
Here at the National Institute for Student Ministries, we've discovered a new method of evangelism that is shaking the very foundation of our thinking. It may appear unorthodox, but frankly, we're shocked with the results. We're amazed at this revolutionary idea, especially designed to boost student evangelism.
Why did I want to be the evangelism linebacker? Well, let me put it to you like this. Yeah, baby! Next time I'm gonna hit you so hard you're gonna go into flight, NASA's gonna think I done launched a satellite! You see, as a fish was created to swim in water, as a bird was created to fly, I was created to knock people out who don't evangelize.
The evangelism linebacker deals directly with a variety of students' fears associated with sharing their faith.
All right, it's all you. This house has got your name on it.
I'm not ready yet.
What makes you think I'm ready, though?
Fear of rejection, for example.
Let me talk to you about fear. 4th and 1, Jerry Rice, what you gonna do? That don't compare to 4th and 1 in eternity. It doesn't matter who rejects us because we're always accepted by Christ. God loves you. Get off the floor and go door to door.
Can we talk to you for a minute?
I'm a lover, not a fighter, baby.
He loves you, but it might hurt.
Sometimes I'll blow you up, but it's because I love you.
Yeah, but just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean I need to be out sharing my faith. I mean,
Don't you run from me! You can't escape my grasp! D. Gray will throw you in the trash!
Thanks to the evangelism linebacker, campus evangelism nationwide is up 87%.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. I'll never do it again.
Hey, I can't go to the outreach today. I just got some more important things I gotta do. Hey man, give me a break. I went to church on Sunday. I gotta go.
Selfishness? The world needs a message. For God so loved the world, He wants to communicate it through you. If you procrastinate, you will open up the gate to a beatdown. Give me that phone, boy. When I see selfishness, it is my job to blow them up. That's what I do. I blow them up so that they can get their eyes off of self and look at Christ, the prize.
What's up, baby girl? Nah, I'm busy.
We're intrigued, as the linebacker is particularly effective in infiltrating centers of cultural and intellectual exchange.
Here you go. Here's your double cappuccino latte mocha with a twist. Not too hot, not too cold. Perfect for you.
Yeah, but anyway, man, did you hear that talk from that guy the other night?
Oh, I know. Like we were supposed to be sharing our faith in like coffee shop.
Whoa! Whoa! Shut out in the coffee shop, baby! You next!
It's unlikely that the recent decline in coffee sales has anything to do with our program.
Pride comes before the fall. That's Old Testament. Old Testament. You know this.
Thanks for the coffee, Darren.
Hey, you're welcome. Have a nice day.
Your mama raised you better than this boy. Don't let me blow you up no more. You see, I think it's fitting because when people have pride, that they're too prideful to share their faith, what I do is I knocks the pride out of them. What I would like to communicate to my brothers and sisters is this. When you least expect it, around the corner, perhaps even under your bed, I can be in a phone wire. I can be everywhere. And just know that I'm always watching, ready to lay the boom on you, baby. Booyah!
Ouch. Are you ready for game day?
Can you imagine tonight? Boom in the bar. Oh my goodness. Well, let's get started. I've known Kevin Wells for, just a couple years now. And Kevin and I are becoming good friends. It's been really fun, even with just the short conversations that you have someone with eye to eye, that see things like the way you see them. It's just been a real blessing for me. Kevin is a former MLB writer, a Catholic speaker, author, a priest, and beggar. The Heroic Life of Venerable Aloysius Schwartz. His best-selling book, The Priest That We Need to Save the Church, was published by Sophia Institute in 2019. Watch just a real short clip here.
All right, welcome back to another week of Live the Faith. I'm here with Kevin Wells, former sports writer, who's got an incredible story, and we just had him on our latest year of That Man Is You. So thank you, Kevin. Thanks for joining us.
Mark, it's a pleasure, an honor.
Awesome. And you're a That Man Is You man as well.
I am, many years.
Awesome. Praise God. As Kevin was giving his talks today, I was struck by a few words in particular that came across very strong. And one of those is comfort. Tell us a little bit about Catholicism and comfort in the modern American.
Well,
all right, men, let's welcome. Give him a warm applause, Mr. Kevin Wells.
Glenn, thank you. I sound very loud right there. So is this a good distance right here? I'm not too loud. We're good? Okay, very good. Glenn, thank you. I don't know, so who was here, I should say this, who was not here last year? Oh my gosh, okay, this is great. Now, who was here last year? Let me see those. Okay, good. This actually will you've telegraphed sort of what I'd like to share today. Hey, Glenn, really quick. So it's 9:55. How long should we go here, up here? 45 minutes, perfect. An hour if I need it? Okay, very good, I got it. Men, thanks for coming out. I mean, look, this is, you guys got farms, you got wives, you got kids, and you broke away and you said, I need to be fed. I don't know what's going to be out there. I don't know this guy Wells. I don't know Father. I don't know Glenn. I don't know Mission Blueprint, but you cut the cord and you came out. So I really, genuinely, I want to thank you just for being here. Hopefully you'll grab some nuggets that you'll take home. Let's be honest, I've done, I don't know, dozens and dozens and dozens in my lifetime, these men's conferences. And what I've learned over the years is I simply have to take a nugget or two home. And there's got to be some conversion. So that's the one thing I'll suggest going in. I'm sort of the leadoff hitter here. So just take a nugget or two. Don't take 20, because 20 they don't work. You know that. You try and do 20 things and you end up doing 0 things. So take a nugget or two. That's what I'll suggest. A couple things that were providential. This is pretty neat how God works. So a good man named Peter. Peter, stand up. Stand up. Peter, I met him last year, and this year he said, hey, Kevin, why don't you stay at my house? I'd love to host you. So I hung out at Peter's house last night with Francesca and the kids, and we were talking this morning about what was just shared. We're sharing our coffee. We're going over the bumpy roads. I got the coffee, and I'm spilling it all over me. But what was just introduced by Glenn, comfort, we were talking about. I wasn't planning on talking about comfort. And all of a sudden, it shows up here from a couple years ago when I was down with the That Man Is You guys. But here's what's providential. Peter, stop being a glory hound. Sit down. Here's what happened. So I'm an old Major League Baseball writer. Any baseball fans? Okay, good. So I covered the World Series. I covered the playoffs. I'm a massive baseball fan. Massive. It's like the one sport I still hang on to. And when I say this, gentlemen, this is true. I don't miss a pitch of the Baltimore Orioles because it's my one little pagan idol, I should say. I'm an enormous Orioles fan, and they're actually good. They won 101 games last year. They're a good baseball team. But Glenn said something a few minutes ago. He brought up 2004 and the Boston Red Sox. And I'm not one of these speakers that will tell you to grab out your pen, guys, and write things down. I'm not one of the, you guys do whatever you want to do. Go where the Holy Spirit leads you. But I do want you to write down 2 words. And this wasn't on my mind 10 minutes ago until Glenn brought up the 2004 World Series. Before I bring up these 2 words, does anybody remember, any baseball fans remember what Kevin Millar said when they came back from being down to win? He said 2 words. The Red Sox hadn't won a World Series since they traded Babe Ruth. They had the curse, right? They had the curse of the Bambino. And Kevin Millar said 2 words in the clubhouse that changed everything. What were those 2 words that you're going to write down? Anyone remember? Okay. Kevin Millar, who was kind of the rowdy guy in the clubhouse, he said, boys, cowboy up. I don't say cowboy up in Maryland, where I'm from, where people drive Priuses and they wear pink shirts. I don't say it in Florida. I was in Florida last week. There was 900 men at a conference. I don't say it in Florida. I don't say cowboy up. But I said cowboy up to you, and I ask you to write these 2 words down, and then we're going to get into the reason why. You know, the way I would look at cowboy up is this, is 9/11, the flight 9/11. Do you remember the flight that crashed? Do you remember what the gentleman said? Let's roll. Cowboy up, let's roll. Just 2 other words, let's roll. It's, guys, we got to master ourselves. We've got to master ourselves. It's a stinking mess out there. I don't care about society anymore. We know it's a stinking mess. It's a stinking mess in the Catholic Church. Guys, we got to cowboy up. Guys, it's collapsing now. Just please mark my words, things are collapsing now. I think you sense it. Matter of fact, I was talking to someone earlier this morning about the good crowd today. This is a great crowd. I think guys sense a certain collapsing now, a pressing down. There's this sort of invisible chlorine, World War II chlorine gas that we cannot see, but it presses down. I don't care about society. Forget about society. The ship has sailed on society. It's pressing down in the Catholic Church and on the Catholic Church. Cowboy up. You guys are cowboys. I'm a pretty boy from Annapolis, Maryland. I'm talking to the elite. I'm talking to SEAL team. I'm talking to the best. I'm a Maryland boy. I'm DC. I try, but you guys are the cowboys. We've lost our cowboys in the worldwide Catholic Church. Why? Because as Peter and I were talking about on the bumpy South Dakota roads to get here this morning, coffee spilling, because we've lost our cowboys. So what I'd like to do for the next 45 minutes or so is I want to get into the 8 characteristics of what cowboys do. I wrote this book, The Priests We Need to Save the Church, a few years ago. And I guess because in God's providence it came out after the the Summer of Shame, the great scandals of McCarrick, the Pennsylvania grand jury reports, the Vatican Bank, the seminary scandals in Honduras, Chile, and South America. It came out at the right time, and it just became a bestseller, not because of the old washed-up sports writer, but because God touched it. But why did it resonate with priests and bishops and laity throughout the world? The book is in seminaries on 5 different continents. 5 different continents. Why did it resonate? Because in this book, over and over and over again, I rolled out the red carpet of 2 words: the men who cowboyed up. I can't write a book on what priests should do. That's arrogant. Why is this laity saying, this layman saying, oh, the priests we need to save the church, here's who you are? I can't do that because I'm a big fat loser. I can't do that. How arrogant of me to do that. So what do I have to do as an old journalist? I study the lives of the paragons, of the titans of the church: Vianney, Bosco, Neri, Newman, Colby, the greats. The guys who cowboyed up every single stinking day. Why? Because they knew they needed to be a poured out libation of Jesus Christ in persona Christi. When you call yourself a priest of God, you must pour yourself out. What has the church done? It has zipped itself up. It is not pouring itself out as white martyrs, as red martyrs, whatever it takes. God, I give you every last inch of me. Everything in my tank I give to you. I studied them. I sensed for 5, 6, 7 years what's going on in the church. I want to get into a little story now. Just a little bit of story before I get into these 8 characteristics of the paragons. And what led up to it. In 2009, I had just turned 40 years old. For many years, I think it was 16 or 17 years, my family would go to this men's retreat on one of the prettiest spots on the eastern seaboard of America. My boy Joe, been there, Loyola and Faulkner. Beautiful spot, right, Joe? So Loyola Retreat House sits up on a high cliffside that overlooks the Potomac River, this wide expanse of the Potomac River. I mean, you're hard-pressed to find a prettier spot on the eastern seaboard of America. I mean, sunsets there, they cause tough men to cry. I mean, it's just soaring eagles, all the stuff you guys see in South Dakota. It's actually one of the beautiful spots in Maryland. And my grandfather started going there way back in the 50s, and someone from my family has been going there every year since. And I've been going there for 16, 17 years. And this one particular year, we always go the same weekend. It's the first weekend of Advent. Ever since the 1950s, the first weekend of Advent. And I think because I had just turned 40 years old, right after I dumped my bag in the room, everywhere I went, it sits on about 225 acres, woodland, beautiful spots, vistas, all that. Everywhere I went, everywhere I walked, prayed the rosary, maybe I was in Eucharistic adoration, maybe it was benediction, maybe a priest just gave a really good talk, maybe I was praying in the chapel in my room, was this poking awareness, man, you're not getting it done. You're 40 years old, and you've been coming to this thing for a long time. And, maybe you're not caught up, Kevin, in serious mortal sin. You're not doing the porn thing off to the side. Yay, Kev, you're not doing porn. Great, good job. But you're not, this is God speaking to my head, to my soul. You're not getting it done. There's too much sloth in your life. You're too comfortable. Your wife, Krista, she doesn't demand it. I demand it. She needs more sacrificial love. And you know what? Your kids do too. You're okay. You're okay as a dad. You're pretty good. You're okay. As a husband, you're all right. But man, you've got so much more left in your tank. And you know it. And this poking awareness followed me around wherever I went. The jig was up. I knew it. So I have this tradition that I do on the last night of the retreat. I've been doing this for years, is around midnight. So it's way out in the country. So like South Dakota, you go outside, you can see the Milky Way, you can see all the stars, and I would get up at midnight and I would walk down this steep cliffside to this dock. And I would just go out there and pray, and I'd sort of collect what I gathered throughout the retreat and sort of just talk to God under the starlight, the moonlight. And on this particular year, it was different. As I'm walking down the hill, it was a very bright night. It must have been the full moon because it was very bright. Like usually I'm sort of like walking gingerly because I can't see the footstep, but I could see the entire cliff. So the moon was bright and the stars were out. And I'm walking down, and as I'm walking down this hill, the moon seemed to me to be like God's swinging lantern, kind of just looking down on me. Almost like he's sitting on a stool, a three-legged stool, and he's sort of stroking his beard, and he's shaking his head. He's like, yeah, you're coming back again, I see. You're coming back. But let's be honest, Kevin, this place is just a weekend incubator for you to feel like a saint. This is the place where you feel like Catholic William Wallace. You're Mr. Big Braveheart here. You're holy here, right? But Kevin, the jig is up because you know the deal. You go home, and by the third or fourth, or maybe even make it to the fifth nuisance, or something that goes wrong, it all shatters and breaks apart. Kevin, the jig's up. What do you got this year? Because it's not going to work. You know it. I mean, let's be honest. You know it. It's been coming to you throughout the weekend. You're a comfortable Catholic man who feels like a Catholic hero in this place, and it's a stinking, rotten joke. So what do you got this year? If you feel like you're going to be post-Pentecost Paul, you want to be a martyr for the faith, is that what you want? Go ahead. Because we know what's coming. The other shoe's going to drop, and it's going to shatter. Yeah. All these thoughts came, and yeah, 100% right. And a thought came to me, and it had never come to me in my life. It simply had to be of the Holy Spirit because these things don't happen, at least to me. And the thought was this: in my humiliation, this wave of humiliation that covered me like that chlorine gas, it was this: God, you sent your Son into the world to endure violence, to endure suffering, to redeem all of humanity. He died to save all of us, to save me. And God, maybe there's a linear symmetry there. Maybe there's a linear symmetry. God, maybe if I get the same, maybe if you strike me down, maybe if you flatten me, maybe, God, if you make it violent in my own life, that I'll get back up, not in the same fashion of Jesus coming out of the cave 3 days later, but I'll get back up, and there actually will be conversion. So God, make it violent. Strike me down. And this warmth covered me because I was raised in a big Catholic family with parents who taught me that when you made this type of prayer, that 100% of the time, 100 out of 100% of the time, God answers. And I knelt down on the dock as this warmth covered me, and I wept because finally I cowboy up. Finally, let's roll. God, let this love story begin. And I wept. I got up, I walked back up that hill, and I knew the other shoe was going to drop. I didn't know what God was going to do. Financial ruin, calamity, pain, whatever. But something was going to happen. Didn't know the day, didn't know the time, didn't care. Almost exactly 1 month later, Actually, exactly 1 month later, almost to the exact ticking second, I laid my head down on the pillow for sleep, and it felt like somebody took a tomahawk and flung it into the back of my skull. I had a brain hemorrhage. Perfectly healthy up until that moment. Everything was fine. Head exploded. Pain I can't describe. I knew within a second that I had an aneurysm. You know these things. Thank God Krista, my wife, was already asleep next to me, and I nudged her and I said, call 911. Hour and a half later, I'm in a hospital in Baltimore, and they can't stop the blood that's drowning my brain. They were sticking all these shunts, drilling all these shunts into my head, and the blood was going pretty good. And they were putting me in these, as the days went on, maybe 2-3 days went on, they were putting me in these giving me CT scans so you'd get in that claustrophobic tube. And it was maybe the second or third day, and I was in the tube again because they were threading the tubes up into my brain to try and embolize the blood, to try and glue the blood. They didn't want to go in because the malformation, it's called an arteriovenous malformation. It was too deep in the cerebellum, so they were trying to glue it in a different way. And it wasn't really working. Like they had tried it 2 times, so they gave me a contrast so they can get a better look into the brain to maybe see how they could go in. And they gave me this contrast, and they put me into the tube, and in this tube, I began to vomit because I had a reaction to the contrast, I guess. And it was then at that moment that it was like, so I thought I was going to die of a brain bleed. By the way, I still had the thinking. I could still understand what was going on. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. I was rendered sort of helpless by the brain injury. But I could understand, and I was thinking, I thought I was going to die of a brain bleed, but no, I think I'm going to choke to death. And I couldn't tell the nurses to pull me out because I couldn't speak anyway. I couldn't do anything. So, very important, gentlemen, very important what I'm going to say now. What happened at that time, I said, man, I might have another 15 seconds, 30 seconds before I sit across the judgment seat where that bright light is on me. And I wasn't thinking about the whoppers of sins in my past, the college stuff and all that stuff in the past. I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about, you didn't love well enough. You had more in your tank. Man, you were too comfortable. What a thing to give to God. What a thing to give to God. So you think in that moment, well, maybe I can give God this. Maybe I can shuck and jive God this. Because I get it, it's kind of true. I had more in my tank, but I'll shuck and jive God a little bit. And maybe I did die and I choked to death, or the blood just drowned my brain finally, and I did die, and I sat across from Jesus, and I said, well, Jesus, it's good to meet you. You're my Savior, and I love you, and I served you. And I prayed the rosary, and I tried to get the weekday masses, and I didn't miss the Sunday masses, and Jesus, I loved you. So I sacrificed here and there, and I got into Catholic writing, and I wrote a bunch of articles, and I wrote some books, and Jesus, I did silly things like, not silly, but That Man Is You, and I spoke about this and that, and I led the men's group in this, and Jesus, I loved you because I wanted to show the face of God to humanity, and Jesus, I'm glad to be with you now. Depart from me, I never knew you. Jesus, did you not hear me? Depart from me. You don't shuck and jive Jesus. You don't shuck and jive God. I was too comfortable. I swallowed down the vomit because I wasn't eating anyway and I survived. I don't have time. Time is limited, but if you read this book, you'll understand the miracle that happened in the ICU room, and it was a miracle, where a priest and his assistant came in. In 30 seconds, my uncle was a Catholic priest who was murdered in his rectory in the year 2000. One of my best friends, and his best friend, Father Jim Stack, was called into my hospital room that night after a failed brain surgery. They decided to go in. The surgery failed. This was the day to die. I was incapacitated, and Father Stack came in with his assistant into the darkest place in Baltimore, the 7th floor of the ICU room, and the ICU room of neurology at the University of Maryland Medical Center. That's where people go to die. And he begged my uncle, after I asked him, my dead uncle, my murdered uncle, after I said, bring Tommy down, Monsignor Thomas Wells, I called him Tommy, Uncle Tommy, bring Tommy down. And then lights began to pop throughout the room, and the whole temperature of the room changed. And Father Stack, my uncle called him Stack Man. South Dakota folks would love him because he didn't smell like incense. He was a boxer. He was a weightlifter. He had holes in his cassock. That's why my uncle loved him, because he was a man. He said, I knew I was standing in front of something supernatural, but I knew it was a miracle when I sensed the heavenly court sort of in a horseshoe around your bed, and Tommy was standing, his best friend, one of my best friends was standing next to him. And I said, I knew that's when you were healed. Next day, they stuck me back in the MRI tube, and everything was gone. The malformation, the blood, the fluids, gone. Get out of here. Get out of the hospital. I don't know what happened to you, but get out. You're good. Go home. So here I am. It shouldn't need to be said, but I'll say it anyway. You're not the same after this. Nothing's the same after this. I could break down in 5 different talks what changes, but I'll try and make it tight because we have a long day ahead of us, a fruitful, good day ahead of us. But 2 things happened. I was no longer seeing, in a certain sense, bodies in front of me. I became a masonry contractor after my days of sport trading, but I was seeing souls. So architects, engineers, bricklayers, laborers, foremen. I was seeing souls. And the other thing that came was at Mass, because I love priests, I'm from a family of priests, I continually saw what seemed to be a contraception of 2,000 years of sacred truths. It was a bending away from sacred truths, and I didn't really understand it then, but as time went on, I kept thinking, I wonder why Father doesn't ask me to get to confession more frequently, or ask me to adore more frequently, or lead a family rosary every night, or why is Father acting as a dam to my sanctity? Why is Father not acting as a bridge to take me to heaven? Why is Father making things comfortable for me? So year after year went by, and I kept thinking, well, maybe the next pastor, next parochial, they'll come in, but no. So finally, one day, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a sabbatical from work. I'm going to ask my 3 brothers in this masonry contracting company to take a break. They don't even know what a sabbatical means. But I said, I'm going to take a sabbatical. I want to write to priests. So, as I mentioned earlier, I studied the lives of the greatest priest saints in the history of our Catholic Church. And 8 characteristics of saintly priests kept bubbling up. And I'll ask you to take up your pen again. And the reason you pick up your pen is because these 8 characteristics of John Bosco and Colby and Neary, they're the same characteristics for South Dakota men. Glenn talked about mission. Well, what the hell is mission if we don't have the foundation to go on mission? I promise you men right now, if you write down these 8 characteristics and you oblige them, you will go to heaven. I can't promise you that, but I don't know how you cannot go to heaven. What is mission? I'm a masonry man, right? I build block block buildings. What is mission without concrete and block? It's a silly mission. It's a comfortable mission. So I want to briefly go over these 8 characteristics of the paragons, of the titans. Number 1, holy priests, holy men adore the Eucharistic face of Jesus. My buddy Joe over here and I have a good friend. Joe's from Maryland. I have a friend named Father Dan Leary. Father Dan Leary, for 3 years, was the only priest in the world that had 20,000 souls underneath his care. He was the chaplain at boys' towns and girls' towns throughout the world, 7 different countries. And when I say he was the chaplain to them, the father to them, he was. For 3 years, he got in front of more than 10,000 of the most bullied children in the world. Girls that were pimped out for 5 years at the age of 7 to 12 in neighborhoods because there was no food in the house. Girls who were raped by touchy-feely uncles. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of girls. Boys that were beaten by pipes because they wouldn't join MS-13 or whatever they got in the Philippines. The Sisters of Mary, whom Father Dan was the chaplain for, said, Father Dan, will you come because these kids have been ripped to shreds by Satan, by demonic influences of the world. They are the poorest of the poor. They are the ones that have experienced the violence of poverty in unspeakable ways. They have been trafficked. They have been beaten. They have been destroyed. So what does Father Dan do when he comes down to Chalco, Mexico, Guadalajara, Tanzania, Brazil, Guatemala, Honduras, Philippines? What does he begin to do as he travels? He sees the child in front of him and he digs in and he scalpels down to that wound. The first time that this now 17-year-old girl was touched up by the touchy-feely uncle and says, we're going to get to this and we're going to root it out, because until you know that you are a virgin, until you know you're a princess of God, you can't actually graduate from this girl's town and go off into the world. So we got to yank this thing out. But Father, you don't know. I've been touched by hundreds of men who I don't know. No, listen to me. You are a princess. You've never been touched. You're a virgin. I'm going to get to this. Father, you can't get, I'm going to get to this. Do you trust me? Yes, Father. And let's start. Let's cowboy up. Let's start. Thousands of children Father Dan Leary got into every day of his life, 0.0 days off, because there's too many kids. He has confessions. Sometimes we'll go to confession, we'll see a line of like 8 people and be like, ugh. Father Dan's lines for confessions were 135 long. No joke. This is no, I'm Irish, but I'm not embellishing because I've been down there many times. No joke. They just keep coming in waves. Asked Father Dan last year, we were having dinner one night. It was at 10:30 at night. I tried to follow him around all day long to see his work, and I saw it. Father Dan's a close friend of mine. Finally, one day we're having dinner. It's like 10:30 at night. All the girls are asleep. The 3,500 girls in Chalco, Mexico, at this girls' town, which is it's the most beautiful thing in the world. It's like these Lazaruses are being raised from the dead. And I said, Father, how do you do it? Like, how do you work 17 hours every single day? How do you do it? Like, how do you have the stamina and strength? It doesn't make sense. Like I don't know how it's done. He had one answer. He said, Kevin, every day I get up at 4 and I stick my nose in front of the monstrance. I can't do any of this unless I stick my nose in front of Jesus exposed in the monstrance. That's the only way I can do any of this. And when I step away an hour later into the jungle of evil, I've been equipped to at least have a heartbeat's chance of taking it on. That's number one. Let's go to number 2. Mary, the holy and faithful priest, the holy and faithful Catholic South Dakota man, has a Marian devotion. I was noticing at this morning's Mass, Father Norfolk's Marian love. You know, sometimes you just sense it. You don't even try. It just comes. Father Norfolk's a Marian. I don't know Father at all, but I sensed him as a Marian priest. And I think it's very important what I'm going to introduce right now as regards Mary. I have a very good priest friend. He's 95 years old. His name is Monsignor John Esseff. Monsignor Esseff is a soul reader. He's an exorcist. In 1959, he experienced a bilocation from Padre Pio in Italy. He was Mother Teresa's confessor overseas for 7 or 8 years. Priests from all over the country every day travel to Scranton, Pennsylvania, to receive direction from this mystic. He's been a priest for 70 years, over 70 years, and he's become a friend of mine. And I see him maybe 3 times a year. I drive up to Scranton. We were talking about Mary one day, and here's what he said. And gentlemen, please do not forget these words, this little small story from Monsignor Esseff. He said, Kevin, here's who Mary is to me. I'm at the 4th station, and I've collapsed on the ground, and the cross is on top of me, and I'm suffocating. I'm under the weight of the cross, and I'm already beat and broken, and all the spit and slobber and punches. The blood is covering me, and I'm on the ground, and the cross is on me, and I can't move another inch. I'm broken at the 4th station. I'm broken at the 4th station. But I look up and I see my mother. I see Mary. Finally a consolation. Finally a wave of consolation. My mom's here. And then Mary bends down and she looks at me with the cross on top of me, and she looks me in the eye and she says, John, get up. You finish this. Get up the hill and you redeem humanity. Do what your father said. That Mary's not the porcelain figure you see on nativity scenes on December 16th in South Dakota. That's the Mary that demands South Dakota men to do God's will no matter how much it hurts. It's Mary saying, cowboy up. When I go into seminaries, is Father still here? Is Father Jeff still here? Father Norfolk? Okay, he left. I'm glad he's not here because I'm going to tell you what I say. Father, get angry with me, but here's what I say. Sometimes I'm asked to go to seminaries to talk about what the laity starve for and their priests, and here's what I say. The 2 things I say. It's good Father Jeff isn't here. He might smack me, but I say, hey, seminarians, are you making a daily holy hour? Don't raise your hand because you don't want to get humiliated. But if right now you're not making a holy hour in this incubator of learning what it is to be a saintly priest, you know what? You probably shouldn't be here. Why don't you just, think about just leaving the seminary because you don't love Jesus. Let's be honest. You guys don't love Jesus. I see you walking around like this. You look really holy and stuff. You're wearing that cassock. It looks great. I hear it whoosh when you walk by. But you know what? If you're not making a holy hour, just think about just leaving the seminary because you don't love Jesus. And here's the other thing I say. Hey, guys, if you're not praying a daily rosary, you don't love Mary. Let's just be honest. Don't speak up. But in your soul, in your mind, in your conscience, you don't love Mary. How are you going to be a holy priest one day in this slaughterhouse of a world with a Catholic president that supports things that are satanic? How are you going to go into this world when you get slaughtered by your laity after Mass because you actually preached on contraception? If you're not protected by Mary, if you're not covered and shrouded by Mary, so let's be honest, guys, if you're not praying the rosary, why don't you just leave the seminary? You're doing it for something else. Number 3, prayer. My life has changed. I'll get my microscopic soapbox right now. My life has changed about 18 weeks ago, 19 weeks ago. So for years, since my brain surgery, a lot has changed in my life, right? One of the things I began to do is I began to pray pretty consistently every day at 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. before everyone got up. But lately I've been feeling with this pressing down in this Catholic Church, in this world, where Pope Francis is doing very strange things. Guys, I'm speaking with candor now. It's time for candor in the church. Very strange things are happening as I speak in the Catholic Church. You all, I think, know this, but I will speak frankly. I've traveled too much. Fiducia Supplicans, the blessing of disorder, was introduced from the very top. The number 2 in the church has written pornographic writings in his past. He's number 2 in the church. Father James Martin is able to travel around like he's Pope number 2. Gentlemen, I don't care about society anymore. You can scratch and claw and say, oh, let's get rid of that NR-17 movie theater. Let's get rid of pornography. No, guys, that doesn't do anything. What does something is when you become aware that the church is collapsing now. The weight of the demon has gotten in. Guys, I don't know if you understand this. Please trust this washed-up sports writer who's become a Catholic journalist. I've learned far too much. And it isn't silly little gossip and emotions. I've learned from bishops, spiritual directors, and priests who tell me things that are raw and real, that have no bone to pick. Here's what's changed my life about prayer. When I've learned all this, it's like you've got to go deeper now. This is what changed my life, and guys, I'm going to suggest it for you. Learn what the church has rejected. So we can go to daily Mass. Wonderful. We can adore the Eucharist. Wonderful. We can be Marian and pray the Rosary. Wonderful. We know all the Catholic heirlooms, but I'm going to encourage you men to take on mystical contemplative prayer, meditative prayer. Why? Why? Because when you light that candle at 5 a.m., or let's say you get up at 5 a.m. to take care of your farms, when you light that candle at 4 a.m., and you shut it all down, and you beg God, give me a word. Just give me one word. And maybe on that Monday, he gives you nothing. And Tuesday, you do it again, and he gives you nothing. Wednesday, you do it again, 0. Then maybe Thursday, something emerges. Well, guess what you did on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday when you had nothing? You loved like God. Why? Because you give nothing to God. God looks down on you and he adores you, he loves you, but you give him nothing. So when you stick it out for that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, you love like God. God, I will not move. I will stay here and wait upon you. In this desert, in this dryness, in this place where no consolations are coming, I give you my desire to hear your voice. Give me a word, give me a sentence, but give me something to teach me how to be the husband, a better husband, a better lover of you, more sacrificial, better at work to overcome this issue. God, your church is collapsing. Give me a word. Mystical prayer. I'm in the middle of the 9-month spiritual exercises of Ignatius Loyola. I was talking to Peter today. Again, these are what God gives us. I was talking to Peter today. I wasn't thinking about this, but we were discussing. This is one thing that's recently come to me in contemplative prayer. Again, this is mystical theology. This is the way that Jesus prayed. You don't think Jesus was praying this way for 40 days before he took on his mission? Mary prayed this way. The early saints and martyrs prayed by contemplating God. What changed the Catholic Church? It wasn't Vatican II, guys. A lot of, Vatican II blew. No, this happened 500 and some odd years ago after the Council of Trent. It was Quietism. It was Stoicism. What is Stoicism? It's when the church said, we need to learn how to think about God. And once they studied, and once they wrote, and once they had conversations, intellectual conversations about better ways to know God, guess what happened? God began to vanish. Christ began to vanish. Because all of a sudden, man, we kind of know. 2024, this is who God is. God, you're not. God, you know what? We've evolved past you because we've learned a lot over the last 500 years. Hey, God, you're, in a certain sense, we love you, but your day is, let's be honest, God, your day is done. We've learned so much about the world. And gender, we love you, God. We love you so much, but you know what? We've evolved. God doesn't evolve. The Catholic Church has. Well, the false Catholic Church has, but the real Catholic Church, Peter and I were talking about this standard. Why do we not talk the way Ignatius Loyola talked centuries ago when he said essentially this: I was a soldier. A single line is drawn across the entire world. On one side are those that stand below the standard of Jesus Christ, the banner of Jesus Christ. They are the soldiers. Pour out into the world and show them my Father's face. You are soldiers in a spiritual war. Go. On the other side is the standard of Satan. We can shuck and jive and play the games and helicopter in the middle of that line. We can do it. The Catholic Church is doing it on this very day. It's being done in the Vatican. It's being done in chancelleries throughout the world. We can helicopter. Do not helicopter. Choose a stinking side, because I contend that the majority of Catholics today have chosen the standard of Satan. Guys, it is time for candor in American Catholicism. Choose a stinking side. Which banner do you want to stand under? If you choose the banner of Jesus Christ, then you know what you did? Kevin Millar, let's cowboy up. Let's win this stinking World Series. I don't care about the curse of the Bambino. I don't care if it's 90 years old. I don't care if we've been mocked by baseball fans for decades. Let's cowboy up and win this stinking thing. Choose a side and do not helicopter. Get emotional when I talk about baseball and God. I'll kind of hurry up here. Glenn, how many minutes? You sure? 10 minutes? Very good. All right, we're going to run through these things. Victimhood. Number 4, victimhood, guys. Victimhood. I just wrote a story on one of the most popular anchors on ESPN in the past 16 years, Sage Steele. It's in Crisis Magazine. Sage Steele chose to be a victim. She took on the Disney sort of woke ideology with vaccines, with LGBT, with Black Lives Matter. The fact that on air, co-anchors were saying that Donald Trump is a white supremacist. So Sage Steele took the $3 million a year salary, took her dream job as a girl, and she took it on and fought it. and spoke. She became a victim because she knew she was going to get canceled, and she was. I talked to her the other day. I'll never ask you to read my stuff, but I do want you to read the Crisis Magazine piece on Sage Steele, because I've written probably thousands of articles in my life. I think 3,000, 4,000 articles. This article has never been more well read. It was sent out by Megyn Kelly on Fox. It was sent out by big sort of, why? Why was it sent out? Not because of the knucklehead sports writer. Why? Because Sage Steele showed what victimhood is, willing to lose all. Willing to lose $3 million a year, willing to lose her stature as one of the most recognizable faces in the country for covering sports. She said, I cannot be silent. Guess what, guys? Sage Steele is a Catholic. She understood her identity. In a certain sense, she understood the victimhood of Jesus Christ. I must suffer and die to proclaim God. Number 6, guys, very importantly, I want to read this. 5, I want to skip 5. I don't feel like doing 5. Really quickly, before I get to 5, 6, 7, 8, this is what I wrote in this book after defining the 8 characteristics of the paragons. The first 4 characteristics allow a priest to receive God's graces. The other 4 are the things a priest, a man, must do or be. So essentially, the first group, everything, the 4 I just named, lays the foundation of his manhood and initiates the second group. The second group are the traits that mark a man's magnanimity. Although each of the traits bear upon one another ontologically, it would seem impossible for the man or for the priest to flourish if he refuses to receive God's grace through adoration, prayer, Marian devotion, and asceticism. Essentially, how could he act upon the will of the Father if he doesn't receive it? Those 4 things are how we receive. And if we do work to receive it, then we can do 5, 6, 7, 8. What is number 5? We become a father. I think it was last year when I was here that I said Bishop Strickland will be canceled. I think I even said in the fall of 24. I'm sorry, the fall of 23. Why was Bishop Strickland canceled? Because he was a father. He was sick of his mother getting punched in the face, Holy Mother Church getting punched in the face. He spoke openly about Joe Biden, spoke openly about Father James Martin, spoke openly about the strangeness of his brethren not addressing the scandal of LGBT ideology that had seeped into the church. So, this guy, he's got to go. He's got to go. He's too much. No, he was a father. He was a father of his flock in Tyler, Texas, so he must go. He's also a victim. I talked to him 3 days ago. He was moving out of his little one-story adobe chancery in Tyler. Very sad, very sad. He was moving into a little house in the woods 20 miles outside of Tyler that day. He was sad because he lost his flock. He lost his identity. He was torn away from him. He was a shepherd. The burden of his identity was to shepherd his flock. It's been torn away. I said, I'm sorry, Bishop Strickland, I'm so sorry. He said, Kevin, I got to say, I don't think I would have changed much. I had to fight for Holy Mother Church. That's what a father does. That's what we do for our own families. Number 6, availability. Our best ability is our availability as men, as dads, as husbands. Really quick, my uncle, Monsignor Thomas Wells, before he was taken out, back in the early 70s, a man was pumping gas down the street from his first parish. My uncle would always go there, and this man was, kind of beaten up. He was a drifter. He had fought in Vietnam and had seen action, bad action, and So my uncle was like, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to keep going back. I'm going to make myself available to him. I'm always going to go to his gas station, and I'm just going to put in $2 a day. I'm not going to fill up. So every day, go back to this gas station. And they struck up a friendship. And finally, one day, the drifter said, Father, it's been tough. You know, I'm a Catholic. I'm kind of embarrassed to say because I got beat up in Vietnam, and I got these strange things and these memories, and I can't seem to shake them. And Father, it's tough. And my uncle, well, okay, I get it. Yeah, of course. I don't understand it. I'm not a soldier, but I know how soldiers heal. And I think you do too. Why don't you start coming to Mass? Yeah, Father. Let's go to confession. How about, yeah, Father, let's start. So this priest starts coming to Sunday Mass, and of course what happens? This man starts coming to Sunday Mass, and this soldier starts coming to weekday Mass. And then one day my uncle said, hey, you know what? There's some change happening. I can see it. There's change. You know what I need right now? I need someone to help my youth. Will you teach my youth catechesis? I need a good CCD man. Father, I can't do that. No, I think you can. All right, Father, I'll give it a shot. So this man starts teaching CCD classes after he gets off work at the gas station. And this man, his hair is cut now, the beard's shaved, he's tight, he looks good, he's 2 years in. And one day he goes up to my uncle and he said, Father, got a strange thing. I think I'm being called to the priesthood. Can I, what do you think? Yeah, I've been waiting for you to ask. John, I've been waiting for you to ask. Let me make a call. Next fall, he entered seminary, this Vietnam drifter who had nothing but a priest who made himself available to him. And Father John Russell's been a priest in the Washington, D.C. area for 41 years because one priest made himself available when, kind of inconvenienced him. Number 7, the prophetic voice. I'm going to use my boy Larry here. Larry, stand up. Larry came up to me a few minutes ago before the talk, and he sort of introduced himself. Talked about what he does. Larry, how many years stand out in front of the Planned Parenthood clinic? Don't sit down.
Well, we stood in front of Planned Parenthood for the last 5 years before most of us.
Okay, so 5 years? 5 years. 5 years. So Larry, the prophetic voice, Larry is John the Baptist because he's a contradiction. 17 below, stand in front of a Planned Parenthood clinic. He's a contradiction to the world. He's a voice. That funny video we saw beforehand, that's Larry. Larry's like, come on guys, cowboy up. I need some folks to join me out here. We need Larrys. We need Larrys because Larry doesn't care anymore. And Larry, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm just imagining, I don't know you at all, but I imagine you're the type who, if you're not getting a response from, I hear your bishop's a great bishop, or your director of clergy personnel, or other priests, or other folks, I imagine if they're sort of, maybe sort of pushing off to the side with your mission to save babies in the womb, I imagine your prophetic voice doesn't dim, but it becomes sort of a bright hallelujah. It sort of accelerates. Is that right? I thought so. Larry, sit down. Last one, and we'll get off the stage. What I like to call the carpe diem mentality. It's the man or the priest who dives into souls. And I'll go back to my uncle, Monsignor Wells. Back in the 1980s, early 1980s, he was on retreat. He was driving down to retreat in Kentucky. And walking down the road, this country road, was a man with a banjo strapped around his shoulder. And my uncle pulled over. He was hitchhiking and said, hey, come on in. And the man had a Canadian accent, sort of a French accent. And my uncle said, oh my gosh, I love Canada. I go there, every other year. I love Quebec. I love Montreal. I try and get to Canada. He's like, yeah, Father, thanks. Yeah, I'm from this little town over there. Yeah. So listen, what brings you down to Kentucky? Oh, Father, I want to be a bluegrass star in the Grand Ole Opry. That's wonderful. That's awesome. You've told me, yeah, Father, I've been playing the banjo for a while, and I keep being suggested to maybe join the Grand Ole Opry, or at least give it a shot. I said, good. You've been praying? Oh, Father. I don't much believe in God anymore. I mean, I'm not to judge, Father. I'm not judging, but I'm trying to do a Canadian accent. I'm talking like an Irish idiot. Excuse me. Father, I'm not an atheist, but Father, I'm agnostic. I just don't know anymore. And he said one thing, my uncle. He looked at him, but they called my uncle the boomer. The boomer. I can't do it because I want to break the microphone, but he looked at him and said, "Don't you miss the Eucharist." That's how it all started. So for the next 2 hours, I don't know, I wasn't in the car. I just know bits and pieces of the story. But my uncle shared the faith because he saw a soul he needed to dive into, and he knew the Grand Ole Opry or wherever they were splitting was right up the road, and he was never going to see him again. So it was time to part ways, and this man, Doug McManaman, there was a road map in the car, and Doug said, "Hey, Father, I don't have any money, don't have much, but would you mind if I play a little roadside concert on my banjo?" And my uncle, "Of course, I'd love that." So he's strumming away. My uncle's like, "Yeah, this guy's talented. I mean, he's good." And Doug said, "Father, if you don't mind, I see a little map right there. Do you mind if I get your phone number, Father, just in case I'm in Maryland one day I can play the banjo?" And "Yeah, of course, Doug, yeah. Here's my number." "Hey, Doug, let's come back." "Father, we'll see." 10 years later, 12 years later, Doug McManaman became the president of the Canadian Fellowship of Catholic Scholars. He became a deacon, a theologian. He's written over 10 Catholic books. He's a prolific writer. He's one of the leading Catholics in Canada in proclaiming the faith. Why? Because one man dove into his soul, almost like it was a face mask, and reoriented it and said, "It's time to come back." Gentlemen, those 8 characteristics will lead your soul to heaven. The only question to ask yourself, the only question to ask myself is, will we cowboy up? Thank you, guys.